have a branch here with some leaves. It's a photopolymer stamp set. But yeah, really cute. So I thought I'd use that instead of the So Very Merry Tonight. So let's get started with the actual card. So we're starting with a card base of Night of Navy. And I've just got a full A4 sheet here. Hi Mark, how you going? And I'm just going to bring in my trimmer. And I'm going to cut this with the short side across the top. So this is a card where you will only get one out of an A4 sheet. So if you're looking to make cards in bulk, this is probably not a great use of your cardstock. You normally would get 2 out of an A4 sheet, but this one you need to cut, you need the length. It's not wide enough to do the fold that I'm going to do. So we're going to cut it at 14.9 centimeters, which is what would normally be the height of our card. And I'm just going to discard that piece, keep it for something else. Just going to swing out that arm and turn my cardstock so the long edge is up against the top. And I'm going to cut it down to 26 centimeters. Okay, so now I'm going to leave that arm out. I'm going to move my cutting blade out of the way because now I'm just going to do some scoring. So we're going to score in half like what would normally be half of our card at 10.5. So this, I'm sorry I can't zoom in on my camera here in this Facebook Live, but so normally we'd score at 10.5, and we're going to just score slightly under, just slightly under the 10.5 centimeter mark, and I'll show you why when we fold the card. And then we're going to go at 21 centimeters, which would be another 10.5, and we're going to score that right on the 21 centimeter mark. Okay, so that will give us, I don't know how well you can see that in the camera, but that will give us 2 score lines. Okay, so we're going to fold that on that score line. Let me just grab my bone folder. Just move that out of the way for a bit. And then we're going to fold in that other flap, the shorter one. Now the reason I score it just shy of the 10.5 centimeter mark is I just want to reduce the bulk when you close up this flap here, because if you score it right on 10.5 and it butts right up to the fold line, I just find that it doesn't fold as nicely here, and it might actually even sort of like crease up a little bit on the edge. But if you're just a little bit under the 10.5, you'll find it's just short of that score line, and it folds really nicely. Okay, so now that I've got that folded, I'm going to bring back in my trimmer, and I'm actually now going to use it to do some measuring first of all. So we've got our card closed like we would a normal regular card, and we've got this flap open, and I'm going to be using the measurements on this right hand side of the gutter here, and I'm going to line it up at the 2.5 centimeter mark. So the edge of my card on 2.5 centimeters. And now I'm going to use my trusty mechanical pencil. Love these pencils. I love how that they fit inside my track. And I'm just going to make a little mark. Now how well you can see that on the card there. It's probably not great on the navy card, but you can see I've just got a mark there. Now I'm just going to turn that slightly, tipping it towards the top, and I'm going to cut from this mark down to this point here. Okay, so not that way towards the score line, away from the score line towards the point, the bottom point of the card. So I'm going to line up that mark, that pencil mark in the channel there, and the point at the bottom. Now when I go to cut that, I don't know if any of you have ever noticed, but when you're starting cutting from a very small point like that, if you just come straight up like that, often it will bunch it all up here and tear it. So what I like to do is bring up my score blade and make sure I don't move my card. I want to make sure that stays lined up, and I'm going to start cutting in the middle. So then I get that nice cut line, and I don't get it doesn't got a bit of fluff there. Where are my scissors? That'd be right. Wouldn't be able to find my scissors, would I? Can only find my ribbon scissors, but anyway, we'll just trim that little bit off the bottom there. Don't like that little furry bit. Okay, so what we've got here now is a card that has an angled front. And of course I didn't actually show you the card, did I? Let me bring in the card and show it to you. So this is a really cool, bit crooked there. This is a really cool little card called an angled gatefold card. And it has a locking mechanism here. So what we do is we slide our little thing across here. We can open it up, and that's the inside of our card. Okay, so now we're going to close that up, and then we're just going to pop that in under there and slide it back closed, and that is the mechanism that keeps our card closed. So that's the card we'll be making tonight. I should have brought that in earlier, shouldn't I? So now back to our card making. So while I've got my trimmer out, I'm actually going to just cut down some of the designer series paper. So this one is just from the Countryside Inn paper, and I'm just using the navy stripes on that side, and I've already cut this down to 10 centimeters, and I want it to be 14.4 long, which is the normal mat for our card front. And then this one with the Calypso Coral and Petal Pink spots comes from the Inked Botanicals designer series paper, and I'm going to cut that. So this panel here, the width of that panel originally, before we chopped off that edge, is 5 centimeters. So I'm going to cut this at 4.5 centimeters, and again at 14.4. Now again, we're going to do the same chop that we did before in order to be able to match up to this panel here. But of course we've already cut 0.5 centimeter off. That's going to give us our border for our mat. So we need to also take 0.5 centimeter off where we make our pencil mark. So before our pencil mark was at 2.5 centimeters, now we're going to make it at 2 centimeters. I'm going to close that up, make a little mark with my pencil, and then I'm just going to tip that, and I'm going to cut from that mark down to the bottom left corner. You can see that, just line that up. And again, I'm just going to lift up my blade, and I'm going to start just away from the corner a bit. We're going to keep that piece because I'm going to use that to decorate the inside of my card. No waste here tonight. Okay, so we'll bring back in our card base. And now we're just going to attach our designer series paper here to the front. So how has everybody been this week? We're all having a good week? Wednesday evening over hump day. Actually, I had to go into work today to the office. So normally I don't work Wednesdays, but today I had to work. And so I went into the office. And because I work part-time and I only work 3 days a week, when I say only, you ladies know what I mean, don't you? Because, there's always work to do at home. Work's never finished. I worked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So, yay, today's Friday for me. So when I left the office today, it was like, yay, now it's the start of the weekend for me. And I can come home and play my craft room for the next couple of days, because everyone else in the house will still be at work. All right, so I'm going to just attach that there to the front of my card. And then our other piece, this spotty piece, is, no, I didn't cut that back the front. I thought I'd cut it back the front for a minute. I'm just going to, seem to have a little bit, obviously need a new blade, I think, in my trimmer. So now I'm just going to attach that. Oops, I can hear my son's playing PlayStation, I think it is. PlayStation, Xbox, I don't know what they're playing these days, but something that's very noisy out there. Right, I'm just going to open this out just so that this flap sits flat while I attach my paper to it. Great. The liquid glue gives me that little bit of time just to move my paper if I need to, if it's not properly lined up. Okay, so there's our card base. Now we're just going to work on the sliding mechanism. So I'm actually going to be using this little die here. So this is from the Something Fancy dies. Now you could use any die to do this. You just want to make sure that it's not too long, and it needs to be wide enough that you can fit a large size dimensional in it. So I'm not sure exactly what the width of that is, and I don't have my ruler here. So, but this one I find actually works perfectly. There's a few others around that will work as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop that sort of probably about a centimetre in from the edge. Actually, what I might do, before we cut that, let's just put that to the side for a minute. Let's just do our stamping first, so we've got something to line it all up with. I did cut a circle here before, but goodness knows what I've done with it. Might have to cut another one. Oh no, there it is. So I've got a stitch circle from our Stylish Shapes. I think it's the second to largest circle. And I'm just going to bring in a scrap of basic white. And I'm going to stamp my birds. Oh yes, it was a little bit warmer. It was freezing cold though, Michelle, the first thing this morning. I don't know what time you left for work, but when I left at, I don't know, 6:30, it was like 5 degrees. It was freezing. But it was really nice when I went out at lunchtime and the sun was shining. And I could almost feel that, we're in the last month of winter now. So hopefully the days will start to get a little bit warmer. Okay, so I'm going to stamp the bird, and I'm going to stamp in Memento because I'm going to be colouring with blends. And I'm going to stamp my little bird as well. And then while I've got my ink out, so I'm going to do the glasses. How cute is that? And then lastly, just while I've got the ink out, I've just got a scrap piece of Petal Pink, and this is greeting is from I think it's Darling Details, Delicate Details. Don't know. No, not that one. It is from. Sorry, you probably can't even hear me talking there while I'm wheeling myself to the other side of my room. It's from this set, from the Inked and Tiled, which is actually the stamp set that coordinates with this paper. So I'm just using the Just a Note. Because like I said before, this stamp set doesn't have any greetings. I'm just going to stamp that there, and we'll die cut that. Oh, didn't stamp that very well. Bit much ink on that one, I think. Need to slow down, breathe. I always hate it when I start my live in a rush, because I always feel like I'm just out of sorts for the rest of the live. You left at 6:30 for the pool. Ah, so you had water aerobics, was it, this morning, Michelle? I bet you it was cold getting to the pool, but probably once you got inside it was really warm. I assume it's a heated pool, so it was probably nice and warm inside. Okay, so now we're just going to do some colouring. I've just got a range of blends here. I've got the light and dark boho blue. I've got the, I think that's the the dark petal pink, and this one is actually Calypso Coral, so it's the light Calypso Coral. And I'm just going to quickly colour those out. That one almost looks like an owl. Would you call it an owl? They do look cute with the glasses on, don't they, Linda? They're and there's all sorts of different glasses, so it's really good. You can really put your own spin on them. So I'm just going to put a little bit of the Calypso Coral down first, the dark. Well, it's actually the light Calypso Coral, but I just found that the Petal Pink, it just needed something a little bit extra to make it pop. And so often I will use, as well as the light and dark of the colour that I'm using, I will also introduce another colour so that I can just add some extra depth to my colouring. And then I'm going to bring in the light. Oh, actually, no, I think it's the dark. I'm getting myself confused now. The dark Petal Pink, and I'm just going to blend out that colour. So the good thing about the blends is, that you can keep going back over the dark. You can blend out those harsh edges. And I just think that little bit of Calypso Coral just takes it away from being so, not quite so apricot, sort of orangey sort of pink, to a more cooler pink, although it is really a warm pink. But I didn't want to use the bubble bath. I thought that wasn't going to work with my paper. While I've got this, I'm going to just colour my bird's head here. And the wing. Oh, Cecilia, you got out in the garden. That's nice. My poor garden's been so neglected lately, I have to say. Especially with Matt after his accident, not being able to get out in the garden. Sort of all the gardening's been left up to me, including the heavy lifting in the garden, which hasn't been fun. So it's been a bit neglected. So I'm just going to go back in and add some of the dark boho blue there, and then just blend that out with the light. So this one, I'm just going to just colour up almost to that line. And then I'm going to bring in my Calypso Coral, and I'm just going to blend in that area there. So it sort of gives it like a so they blend into each other. And you're almost sort of making it bleed. Bring back in this one to blend it out. So it gives you that sort of graduated look there. I think that's most of our colouring done. And then if you want, you can go back in with your colour lifter and then just take off some of the colour in the areas where you'd sort of expect the sun to be shining or the light to be shining. Maybe a little bit in here. A little bit on his breast there. I know it doesn't look like I've done much, but when that dries, you'll actually see that it's lifted the colour there in the centre and just give it a bit of a, not a white patch, but just a bit of a lighter patch there. And now I wish I could find my scissors. No, I have no idea what I have done with my scissors. Oh, there they are. Wasn't looking hard enough. So now I have to fussy cut these because, like I said before, there are no dies or punches that go with these. They're pretty easy to cut out. They the only thing that's a bit tricky is around the legs. I know there's quite a few of you out there, a few of my students who come to my classes who don't like to fussy cut. And that's fine, you know, everybody has the things that they like to do and don't like to do. So I think the trick to cutting around the legs here is to just not cut too close. So leave a bit of white space around the outside, and that will make it a little easier. It'll also mean that they won't bend so much when you're working with the piece after you've cut it. This little one will be a little bit trickier. So normally, if I had been home early enough, I would have pre-stamped and coloured these so that I could have just grabbed a coloured one. I didn't have time to do that tonight, so you'll have to bear with me while I do the cutting. So, who's getting ready to start their Christmas crafting? Is it too early for you people out there to start, or are you someone who likes to start early and get organised for Christmas? Okay, there's our two little birds cut. So pop into the comments and let me know, are you an early Christmas crafter or are you a last minute Christmas crafter? So we're going to pop our little birds on there. I'm just going to take that die I had earlier that we're going to cut our locking mechanism with, and I'm just going to pop over to my die cutting machine and I'm just going to cut that out. Just get a little bit of tape to put that on. Just going to tape that down so it doesn't move. Just going to pop over and cut that. Carefully peel that off. I'll just put that up to the side because I won't stick that on yet. Okay, so now that we've done our stamped image and our circles, I'm going to bring back in my card base. So we're going to pop this up about, okay, no, we'll go to the next stage as well. I'm going to layer this on a petal pink circle that I've cut. So I've used the retired layering dies to cut that. So if you have those, that's what I used. No, never going to get rid of my circle dies. I love circles, and so having all different size circles really suits me. That Stampin' Up retired those in the last, it was the last catalogue, maybe even the catalogue before. But yes, I still use them, and they fit perfectly just to give you a really small edge on your stitch circles. So I'm going to bring back in that die for about the third or fourth time now. And we just want to position it. I want to make sure that when we put that on, our circle is going to cover the hole that we cut. And we're just going to cut it just from the card base. Now I know I've got this closed, just don't worry about that for the moment. I'm going to put a bit of tape on that just so that it doesn't move. Now I'm going to go over to my die cutting machine and I'm going to run that through like that. Just give me a minute to do that. Okay, now that we've done that, we're just going to take that off. I just want to be very careful about peeling off this this bit of tape, because you've already got designer series paper on the front, and I've run it through back and forth a couple of times. It's really stuck this tape down. I just want to make sure I don't rip the front of my card. Okay, I'll take that tape off. And now we're going to just discard that bit. So now to create the other half of our mechanism, I'm going to close up the card. So with the flap to the inside, I'm going to bring back in my pencil, and I'm just going to trace around the inside of that opening. This is going to help me line up my die. So when I open that up, you can see there I've got that line there, and that's just going to help me position that die. So this one, I'm going to pop that on there. Now you have to remember that the die cuts on the inside of the opening, or right up against the edge of the opening, not on the outside. So you just need to line that up, make sure that you cover the line. that you drew. We're just going to tape that down. So now we're going to be feeding it through this way. Okay, back to the die cutting machine. And again, I'm going to be very careful about peeling off this tape. I'll use my tweezers to do that. Oops, I'm ripping the side there. Okay, so if you've got any pencil mark there, just go back with an eraser and just get rid of that. So now that should line up perfectly with the front, with the other hole that we cut, excuse me, to make your locking mechanism. Okay, so like I said before, I cut a circle with the layering circle dies from my Petal Pink. Now I've also cut one from Night of Navy, and that's actually going to go on the inside of our card. Okay, so we're going to line that up over that hole. We want to make sure that we've closed it. Sorry, closed it. Covered it is the word I was looking for. And and that it's about halfway. I'm just going to pop a little bit of tape on there, top and bottom. Just hold that in place. So now you can see that that hole is actually covered up. Now we're going to take our dimensionals. If I can find them. It's a bit of can't find anything tonight. Just grab a new pack, and I'm just going to take 2 dimensionals, and I'm actually going to stick them to that circle that's in the back through the hole. Actually, let me just take that off. Do that very well. Just want to move that just want to move that circle over a little bit so it's closer to that edge, but it's still covering that side. Okay, 2 dimensionals right over to the right hand side. Oops. Goodness, I'm not having much luck with these, am I? So right over here. So you're all following along with me there. You're all very quiet. So these 2 close together. Now we're just going to take our back off that. We're going to pop our circle on here. Okay, so now when we take our tape off the back of here, we should be able to make this slide. Fingers crossed I've got it all right, because you know the way things are going for me tonight, this could turn out to be anything. So now we should have a mechanism that slides. it's going to slide across, and our dimensionals are going to keep it inside of that track. Now what I've found is sometimes you might find that if you haven't got it perfectly positioned, that you might get this little bit here where it doesn't close easily. Now you can either leave it like that if it doesn't bother you, so you can just lift up this bit and tuck it underneath, and then you can still, you know, slide it back to lock. But if that bothers you, I'll just show you my sample. Is what I did, because what happens on the inside, let me just move this, is that this circle here on the inside can't go any further than that fold line, okay? Because, you know, when your card is folded, that's where it has to stop, okay? So depending on how high up or how far up or down you put it, you might find that you have that little, you might have that little edge there where it won't actually just tuck under. What you can do is, like I did on this one, is I just cut a little bit off the edge of my circle, which allows it to go further, and then it just lines up with the edge of your card. And when you do that, then you can just close it like that and slide it along. Okay, so you don't have to tuck your edge under. No one's going to see that bit on the inside. So you're just going to trim a little bit off the edge of the circle, which allows it to come further across. And that will allow you to actually close that front completely before you close your card. Okay, so whatever you prefer. Some people might not bother them, other people it may. So I'll leave it up to you to decide what you prefer. Okay, so now we're just going to finish off by putting our birds on the front. Hi Sandy, how are you going? How was your holiday? Take off those backs. I'm just going to pop in there. Might actually help to bring in my sentiment. So I want him to actually look like he's standing on the top of that sentiment. Oh, thanks, Michelle. Sometimes, you know, you just got to go back and go, how can I make this work? I probably could have had that up a little bit higher, but it's okay. Probably should have put the sentiment on first. So, tip for beginners, put the sentiment on first. I'm just going to pop him on there. And then that's the front of our card finished. And then just for the inside, I just have a piece of basic white, which is just our regular, go back along there, our regular size, 10 by 14.4. And then, what's the bit that I can't find, that little bit of paper that I put aside before? There it is. So this is the piece that we cut off this front here, and I'm just going to pop that across the bottom here. It's good to use up those little bits of scraps because, you know, most of the time we don't use them, we end up just throwing them out. So it's a good tip for using up our scraps. Add just a bit of interest to the inside of the card. I'll just snip that off. Now you could, you know, stamp a greeting on the inside of this, but I decided to leave it blank so I've got room to write, because, you know, my greeting on the front is just a note. I might be just sending this card for no reason at all. So I'm not sure what sort of message I might want to have on the inside. Okay, and then earlier while I was designing the front of this card, couldn't decide whether I wanted my birds to sit on some books or whether I just wanted them on the circle. And I found when I put the books on and then I put the birds on top that it was all a little bit high. So I've kept those books, and I'm just going to pop those here on the inside. So I don't know about you, but I often, when I'm designing a card, I will try lots of things, you know, and sometimes the first thing I do doesn't work, or I don't like it, but I never throw the bits away. I always keep them. I have a container full of odds and sods, you know, leftover things that I try and go back to. I'm not as religious at it as I would like to be, but to use up those designs or those die cuts or something I've stamped and coloured, you know, on other cards. And sometimes it is good to be able to go back to it and just find something quickly that you can use to put on a card. So I'm not going to cut this one, I'm just going to tuck it. Actually, I'm actually just going to tuck it under. I'm not going to bother with the cutting because we're pretty much on an hour tonight now anyway. I'm just going to tuck that. Oh, goodness me. Now you're being difficult under there. And I'm going to slide my little birds along. And there you go. There's my card. Finished. Next to the other one. So there's two of them.